Diddy is done for. 140 hours of footage. That's what prosecutors reportedly have. And people are saying once that tape drops, everyone who defended him is going to go silent real quick. 50 Cent's Netflix documentary exposed a lot, but what they left out might be even darker. Everybody thought they knew the full story about Diddy after that Netflix doc hit. 50 Cent laid it all out, right? The parties, the allegations, the lawsuits piling up. That was the version everyone repeated. Sean Diddy Combs' The Reckoning shook the industry the moment it dropped. People were talking about it for weeks. But now, new information keeps surfacing, and the whole narrative is twisting. Because here's the thing, that documentary barely scratched the surface. Some of the darkest allegations never made it to the screen. The people who helped build his empire barely mentioned. Incidents involving violence, deaths, missing evidence, all glossed over or completely left out. And that's what we're diving into today. What didn't make the cut? What was too explosive even for a documentary designed to expose him? The more you dig, the more you realize this story goes way deeper than anyone wanted to admit. And honestly, that's what makes this whole situation so disturbing. Let's start with December 27th, 1999. Club New York, Times Square. Diddy and Jennifer Lopez were partying when chaos erupted. Witnesses say a confrontation broke out between Diddy and a man named Matthew Scar Allen. According to multiple accounts, someone threw a stack of money directly at Diddy's face, and things escalated immediately. Several witnesses claimed Diddy became aggressive. Moments later, gunfire erupted inside the packed nightclub. A woman named Natana Rubin was struck in the face and seriously injured. She survived, but the bullet remains lodged in her cheek to this day. Think about that for a second. Over 2 decades later, she still carries that physical reminder. Diddy was arrested and charged with weapons offenses. He posted $100,000 bail and confidently denied everything. He stood in front of cameras and said he had nothing to do with the shooting, that he didn't own a gun, didn't possess a gun that night. His legal team echoed that defense, arguing the stolen firearm found in the vehicle was near the front seat, not where Diddy or Lopez were sitting. They claimed the case against Lopez was dismissed for that exact reason, while Diddy's continued only because of public pressure and media attention. But here's where it gets complicated. More than a dozen witnesses inside the club told a very different story. Natana Rubin has consistently maintained her account for over 20 years. She said she saw the weapon drawn, saw the muzzle flash, and felt the impact immediately. She described hearing a voice warning her seconds before she was hit, like some kind of premonition. She has repeatedly stated there's no doubt in her mind who shot her. She's never wavered on that. Despite those claims, the case never fully stuck to Diddy. Instead, rapper Jamal "Shine" Barrow was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison for his role in the shooting. Over the years, Shine has publicly claimed Diddy framed him. He said Diddy used his money, power, and influence to escape consequences, while he lost a decade of his life behind bars. He also alleged Diddy offered money to others to take responsibility. Critics argue this pattern isn't new. Powerful figures avoiding consequences while others fall. Diddy walked free while Shine lost everything. Jennifer Lopez testified at the grand jury and was cleared of wrongdoing. Her legal team insisted she had no involvement with any weapon. Still, many believe the entire case deserves another look, especially considering how many witnesses told a story that contradicted the official outcome. And that wasn't the only violent incident tied to hip-hop royalty that year. Just weeks earlier, another massive name was involved in a serious crime: Jay-Z. In late 1999, Jay-Z turned himself in to police after being accused of stabbing music executive Lance Rivera at a nightclub. The incident made national headlines. Police arrested Sean Carter at Midtown South Precinct. He later pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and received probation. Once again, critics noticed a pattern forming: major allegations, physical evidence, eyewitness accounts, then quiet resolutions with minimal consequences. Diddy, Jay-Z, and others moved through the legal system relatively untouched, while their careers exploded. Instead of setbacks, these moments seemed to strengthen their power and influence. To some, it looks less like coincidence and more like protection, a system that looked the other way when it mattered most. And now, decades later, as lawsuits resurface and federal investigations widen, people are finally asking the question they avoided for years. How many times did the system protect them? How much was really left out of the official story? Because when you look at the timeline, when you see how these cases resolved, when you notice who walked away clean every single time, it stops feeling like luck. Now let's get into the motive and the deeper connections, because this is where everything starts clicking into place. Diddy wasn't operating alone. He was surrounded by politicians, executives, celebrities, and power brokers who formed a protective network around him. Diddy has been photographed with multiple U.S. presidents over the years: Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, all appearing at events, fundraisers, or private parties. People now ask why. Why was a music mogul so closely connected to the highest levels of political power? Old clips have resurfaced, showing Trump openly praising Diddy on Celebrity Apprentice, calling him a friend, defending him publicly when controversies arose. Trump and Melania were photographed with Diddy at high-profile events throughout the mid-2000s. Diddy himself once described Trump as a hardworking friend during interviews. At the time, none of this seemed unusual or suspicious. Powerful people socialize with powerful people. That's how elite circles operate. But now, with federal investigations expanding and old footage resurfacing, people are questioning those relationships in a completely different light. Even reality TV moments are being revisited with fresh eyes. When Aubrey O'Day spoke about working under Diddy and described his controlling behavior, Trump stepped in to defend him, calling him tough but fair, saying that's just how successful people operate. Those moments didn't age well at all. And then there's the footage from inside Diddy's parties, clips showing celebrities laughing, drinking, celebrating together in environments that looked glamorous on the surface. At the time, it looked like success, like people living their best lives. Now critics argue it looks like something else entirely. A tightly controlled environment where power set the rules and nobody questioned what was happening behind closed doors. Usher, Kevin Hart, Justin Bieber, all seen in old clips surrounded by industry figures at these events. None accused of doing wrongdoing in those specific moments, but all tied to the same spaces, the same parties, the same network of influence. And that's the real issue here. Not one incident, not one arrest, but a network, a system, a culture where influence protected itself and accountability never seemed to arrive. Jay-Z survived the Kit Kat Club stabbing case. Diddy survived Club New York. Others didn't. Former associates like Gene Deal have suggested that Jay-Z learned early that loud behavior brings unwanted attention, but quiet power survives. Not louder, not flashier, just smarter about staying in the shadows and moving carefully. The idea is simple. One man moved openly and recklessly. The other moved quietly and strategically. But critics argue that doesn't mean their behavior was fundamentally different. They point to stories of private conversations, exclusive parties, and comments that never made headlines. Allegations of manipulation, control, and influence whispered behind closed doors for years. One former associate recalled overhearing conversations that made him deeply uncomfortable. The tone, the language, the casual way power and control were discussed like commodities. Jay-Z wasn't the only executive connected to Diddy's inner circle. He was part of a wider network, a circle of influence that extended far beyond the music industry, into fashion, media, sports, and politics. That's where the bigger picture comes into focus and becomes impossible to ignore. People close to the industry say there was an unspoken understanding. Certain people were untouchable, certain behavior was overlooked, certain allegations never gained traction no matter how credible they seemed. And when you start connecting those dots, when you see the same names appearing in the same places over decades, when you notice how legal cases quietly disappeared or resolved with minimal consequences, the pattern becomes undeniable. This wasn't just about individual actions. It was about a system that enabled, protected, and benefited from that behavior. And for years, nobody with real power wanted to disrupt it. But here's the part that really hits different and makes this whole situation feel even more disturbing. The people who got caught up in the middle of all this were often the most vulnerable, the ones with the least power to protect themselves. Take Natana Rubin, the woman shot at Club New York. She was just out that night, enjoying herself, living her life. She ended up with a bullet lodged in her face for over 2 decades because she happened to be in the wrong place when powerful people lost control. That's messed up. The leaked footage and witness statements show genuine fear in that moment. You can hear the panic in people's voices, see the chaos unfold. That's somebody's daughter, somebody's friend, and they're dealing with lifelong trauma over a situation they had absolutely nothing to do with. They were just there. And then there's Kim Porter. According to former associates like Gene Deal, Kim lived under constant pressure and control. He's repeatedly alleged that she was mistreated, isolated, and emotionally abused throughout her relationship with Diddy. He claims she was used as leverage in business relationships, that she couldn't move on freely, that Diddy would interfere whenever she tried to form new connections. Gene described Kim as exhausted, emotionally drained, trapped in a cycle she couldn't escape. He said, "You don't treat someone you love like that," emphasizing that control is not love, it's possession. Then in November 2018, Kim Porter died suddenly in her sleep at just 47 years old. The news shocked everyone. Diddy publicly mourned, speaking about grief, loss, and heartbreak in interviews. He described dark emotional periods and praised Kim as an irreplaceable presence in his life. But when the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner released her autopsy report, questions immediately surfaced. According to the report, Kim had been healthy shortly before her death. There was no known history of substance issues. No chronic medical conditions were listed. The report stated she had experienced flu-like symptoms and was being treated by an in-home physician with antibiotics and IV fluids. Emergency services were called when she was found unresponsive, and death was pronounced at the scene. The official ruling stated no foul play was suspected, but for many people, the timeline raised serious questions that were never fully answered. Gene Deal has continued to claim that Kim lived under constant pressure and surveillance. He alleged that Diddy was extremely possessive and controlling, that she was not allowed to move on freely, even when the relationship ended. According to his statements, if Kim tried to form new relationships, Diddy would interfere directly or indirectly. He claimed Diddy only allowed involvement when it served his own interests or business goals. These claims remain allegations. They have not been proven in any court of law. But they add to a growing pattern described by multiple former insiders over the years, a pattern of control, intimidation, and consequences for anyone who tried to break free from that influence. Now let's talk about what happened on camera, because some of this footage is genuinely disturbing once you understand the context. When old clips of Kevin Hart at Diddy's parties resurfaced, people immediately noticed something off. Kevin looks genuinely nervous in that footage. And honestly, he had every reason to be. Just look at what's happening behind him in those clips. The energy is chaotic, the setting is uncomfortable, and suddenly the camera becomes a serious problem for him. Kevin laughs it off, joking, "Did the camera catch that?" and immediately asks for it to be turned away from certain areas. He rushes to explain himself, saying it was Diddy's party, that he was asked to host, that everything was meant to look sexy and fun for promotion purposes. But even as he talks, his body language tells a completely different story. He keeps stressing what he won't do. "I'm not getting on the bed," he repeats multiple times. He physically shifts the camera angle himself, making absolutely sure it doesn't move closer to certain areas. That's not confidence. That's someone trying to create distance and plausible deniability in real time. The jokes keep coming, but the discomfort is loud and impossible to miss. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Then there's Diddy himself. casually telling stories on camera that immediately raise eyebrows when you actually listen to what he's saying. He talks about growing up with younger artists, joking about childhood closeness, saying things that make people watching ask, "Did he really just say that on a live stream?" The more you peel back the layers, the stranger it gets, and the more questions arise. How did this behavior go on for so long without any real intervention? Diddy wasn't even hiding it. He openly talked on television about controlling party environments, about keeping people inside, about setting specific conditions so nobody would leave early. He described it like it was normal, like it was just good hosting. At the same time, videos circulated online showing people visibly impaired, disoriented, uncomfortable in those same environments. And somehow, for years, nobody with real authority stepped in to investigate. Ask yourself this: how does someone with a documented violent legal history get away with openly joking about locking people in rooms and calling it entertainment? There's footage of Diddy explaining in detail how to throw the perfect party. He talks about alcohol, lots of it, about keeping people comfortable and loose, about controlling the environment carefully, about heat, about doors, about not letting the vibe cool off or people sober up too quickly. At the time, it was played for laughs, treated like harmless celebrity eccentricity. Now, it sounds genuinely disturbing when you listen with fresh ears. He even bragged about authorities trying to shut his events down multiple times, framing himself as misunderstood, saying people were just intimidated by how he brought different worlds together. But critics argue it wasn't about unity or breaking barriers, it was about control and creating environments where normal rules didn't apply. While all of this was happening publicly, things behind closed doors were allegedly just as dark or darker. Multiple former associates have described a culture of fear, intimidation, and consequences for anyone who spoke up or tried to leave. Gene Deal, who worked security for Diddy for years, has given detailed accounts of incidents he personally witnessed. He's described violence, threats, manipulation, and a system designed to keep people compliant and silent. He's talked about how people were used, discarded, and sometimes destroyed when they were no longer useful or became potential liabilities. And he's emphasized repeatedly that this wasn't just one person acting alone. It was a network of enablers, participants, and beneficiaries who all had reasons to keep things quiet. The footage, the stories, the lawsuits, and the decades of silence paint a deeply disturbing picture, one where power operated completely unchecked for years. And that's what makes this current moment so different and so significant, because now people are looking back at everything with open eyes and critical minds. The jokes don't land the same way anymore. The clips feel darker and more sinister. The behavior feels louder and more obvious. And the biggest question remains unanswered: how much more was hidden in plain sight? Because if this is what made it to camera, if this is what people felt comfortable doing publicly, imagine what never did. This whole situation gets even crazier when you realize how many other incidents were connected to this same network over the years. We're not just talking about isolated events, we're talking about a pattern that spans decades, involving multiple cities, countless witnesses, and allegations that were consistently dismissed or quietly settled. Think about the Club New York shooting for a moment. That case involved a stolen firearm, multiple eyewitnesses, a victim who still carries the bullet, and a conviction that sent someone to prison for 10 years. Yet the person multiple witnesses identified as the shooter walked away. How does that happen? How does someone with that kind of spotlight on them, with that level of public scrutiny, manage to avoid serious consequences? The answer, according to critics, is money, power, and connections. Lots of connections. Meanwhile, fans online have been working like full-blown investigators for months now, digging through old footage, comparing timelines, analyzing interviews for inconsistencies. They're slowing down frames, zooming in on backgrounds, studying body language and facial expressions. They're comparing voices, mannerisms, and reactions across different clips. And folks online swear they're finding patterns that police either missed or ignored. Some of these internet detectives have created detailed timelines spanning 25 years, connecting incidents that seemed unrelated at the time. They're tracking who was present at which parties, who left the industry suddenly, who settled lawsuits quietly, who changed their stories years later. It's become a full-scale crowdsourced investigation happening in real time across social media platforms. And honestly, some of what they've uncovered is genuinely compelling. Now, let's keep it real. Everything is speculation until it's proven in court. Nobody here is claiming to know exactly what happened behind closed doors. But what we do know is that patterns exist, that multiple people have told similar stories independently, and that the official narratives often don't match what witnesses actually reported. We also know that power protects itself, that wealthy people have access to legal resources most people can't imagine, and that settlements often come with non-disclosure agreements that keep the truth buried permanently. That's not conspiracy theory. That's just how the system works when you have enough money and influence, and in Diddy's case, he had both in abundance for decades. The broader story here isn't just about one person's alleged behavior. It's about an entire industry that enabled, protected, and profited from that behavior for years. It's about a culture where certain people were considered untouchable, where allegations were dismissed as jealousy or opportunism, where victims were silenced through intimidation or financial pressure. It's about a system that valued profit and image over accountability and justice. And it's about how long that system was allowed to operate before anyone with real power decided to challenge it. What we're seeing here is how power operates when it's completely unchecked and unaccountable. The bigger conversation isn't just about Diddy or Jay-Z or any individual celebrity. It's about the structures that protected them, the people who enabled them, and the culture that allowed this behavior to continue for so long. When you constantly surround yourself with yes people, when you create environments where normal rules don't apply, when you use money and influence to make problems disappear, you're not just living a luxurious lifestyle. You're building a system where abuse can thrive unchallenged. And that system doesn't just affect the people directly involved. It sends a message to everyone else in the industry about what's acceptable, what's tolerated, and what happens if you speak up. Diddy's situation is a wild example, but it's also a warning for anybody with significant power and influence. The more you isolate yourself from consequences, the more you surround yourself with people who won't challenge you, the more you believe your own mythology, the more dangerous you become, not just to others, but eventually to yourself. Because power without accountability always collapses eventually. It might take years, even decades, but it always collapses. The internet has changed that dynamic significantly. Things that used to stay buried now surface. Footage that used to disappear now gets archived forever. Witnesses who used to stay silent now have platforms to share their stories directly. The old gatekeepers who controlled narratives no longer have absolute power. That shift is fundamentally changing how accountability works in entertainment and beyond. And it's forcing a reckoning that's been delayed for far too long. The question now is whether the legal system will actually follow through, whether powerful people will finally face real consequences, or whether this moment will fade like so many others before it. So where does this all lead? Right now, Diddy faces multiple federal charges and a growing list of civil lawsuits. Reports say prosecutors have over 140 hours of footage that could be used as evidence. If even a fraction of what's been alleged is proven true, this could be one of the biggest falls from grace in entertainment history. People who defended him publicly are already going quiet. Former associates are distancing themselves. The protective network that surrounded him for decades is crumbling in real time. And here's the thing, this might just be the beginning. More allegations could surface, more witnesses could come forward, more footage could leak. The dominoes are falling, and once they start, they're very difficult to stop. Whether justice actually gets served remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. The story we were told for years, the official narrative, the carefully managed image, all of that is collapsing, and what's emerging underneath is far darker than most people imagined. Stay locked in because this story is far from over. More details are dropping every week. So, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the full truth will ever come out? Make sure you like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.